Welcome and thank you for joining us for this special film screening of Exposing the Unspoken. This call was made possible by an amazing intern, Allison Sager. She is a sophomore at Lebanon Valley College majoring in social justice, philosophy, and political science with a minor in environmental studies. She took the lead on planning tonight's event, creating the event promo, and environmental justice action item we'll take later tonight. We want to celebrate Allison and thank her for all of her great work. For those of you who are new to Elders Climate Action, we are grandparents, great uncles, and great aunts, and everyday folk who are determined to do all we can to leave a sustainable planet for future generations and all life. Our programs, communications, and chapters are focused on building the political will needed to solve the climate crisis. ECA is elder-centered and volunteer-driven, seeking to inform, inspire, and engage older generations to take action on the climate crisis at the local, state, and federal levels. We hope you will consider getting more involved with us. Now, about the call, this is an hour and 15-minute call. We'll be showing a 30-minute documentary film created by our partners at the People's Justice Council and Arm in Arm. We've already shared a few links in the chat where you can learn about our partners and how you can support their work. At the end of the call, we'll share 2 survey links. One is for those who would like to provide feedback about the film, and the other to share your personal story about how rising utility costs have affected you. Please stay tuned for those links. We'd love to hear from you. Now, about the film, Exposing the Unspoken was created by Arm in Arm and the People's Justice Council, PJC, as part of their ongoing Power for Southern People, Not Southern Company campaign. Arm in Arm works to address the climate crisis through racial and economic justice, and PJC is a faith-based group focused on creating a just, sustainable world by connecting people with policy solutions. Together, they are challenging corporate energy monopolies and advocating for community control of energy systems. Arm in Arm and PJC's campaign launched in June 2022. Since then, they have been challenging the dominance of corporate energy monopolies like Southern Company and its subsidiaries, Georgia Power, Alabama Power, and Mississippi Power, and advocating for energy justice. Through this campaign, Arm in Arm and PJC are working to hold Southern Company accountable for its harmful impacts on communities, focusing on issues like rising utility bills, the need for equitable energy systems, and the push to take power out of the hands of corporate monopolies, returning it to the people. So now on to the film.
In some communities and in some zip codes, people are suffering disproportionately because of their electric bills and the manufacturing of the energy that we consume. We have urban heat islands that happen in our communities. You can tell where they are because of the zip code. These communities, you use more and more AC. You pay upwards to 20 and 30% of your income, but to keep your lights on is what robs your children of having wealth.
Picture this: a massive shareholder-owned utility corporation Southern Company, dominating the energy industry, exploiting resources, and actively denying the consequences of its actions across the South, denying the climate crisis, and working to dismantle our democracy and reproductive rights.
Southern Company has been a really bad actor in the South for a long time. They have spent money on legislation and legislators that support anti-abortion, anti-voting, anti-climate, anti-democracy. They've even spent money on legislators that tried to overturn the 2020 election.
We are at a point now in our relationship with this energy company and the way that America does business through energy companies. We're not taking this anymore. These folks pollute groundwater, pollute the air, just destroy the community. We're putting them on notice. We're not going to take this anymore.
And this is Mississippi Power, Daniels plant in Escatawpa, Mississippi. This is the water that they use to cool their facility. They use this water. This runs off from their plant right here. And like I was telling you before, the groundwater is, I mean, you see the water right there. So, you know, the groundwater is in order for folks to get their well water, they only have to go like maybe 20 feet, 30 feet, and it contaminates all of that. It seeps into all of that. So when they talk about the lithium in the water, you should be able to see some of these, those piles over there, that's coal. Those piles right there, that's coal. All right, and we all, they say that's clean coal, but that's a myth. There is no such thing as clean coal. Coal is coal. Coal produces what coal produces, which is lithium and carbon. That's not good for the environment, not good for people to be consuming, whether you're breathing it, eating it, drinking it, bathing in it, cooking with it.
Arm in Arm, however, has had the audacity to challenge this Goliath head-on with uncompromising determination.
One of the most important pieces about the Power for Southern People, Not Southern Company campaign is that we're doing it across 3 different states across the South: Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. Southern Company has subsidiary companies: Mississippi Power, Alabama Power, Georgia Power. So many of us are suffering from the same issues with dirty energy infrastructure across our state, so we figured in order for us to fight back, it was better if we did it together.
We know that in this work, in the climate crisis, that we are up against very well-resourced corporations and power players that have vast amounts of political influence and money. We know our strength lies in people power.
In this documentary, we're going to see how Arm in Arm is exposing the shadows cast and damage done by Southern Company, revealing the extent of their detrimental practices. Let's take a minute and imagine the lush land, trees, and waterways that have been destroyed in the name of profit. Southern Company's relentless pursuit of wealth has left in its wake a trail of environmental devastation across an entire region of the United States.
These folks pollute groundwater, pollute the air, just destroy the community. The most disrespectful to players to the land, period, across the region.
Arm in Arm brings to light the irreversible damage caused by this behemoth, reminding us of the urgent need for change to save our lives.
Birmingham is a predominantly Black community, and we're sick and tired of breathing this dirty air, and we're sick and tired of all the pollution coming into our waterways and into our land and ecosystems.
It's time for us all to say, enough is enough. Power for Southern people, not Southern Company.
Power for Southern people!
Not Southern Company!
Power for Southern people!
Not Southern Company!
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
But wait, what about the often untold human cost behind Southern Company's massive profit margins? Brace yourselves, because this is where things get ugly.
People are paying energy bills that are outrageous, hundreds of dollars every month going towards energy bills, and paying some of the highest electric bills. Energy burden is what we call it in the country.
It's extremely high, and I'm just like, it couldn't be this high for just two people living in a single family home. And I work 9 hours out the day, and my daughter's in school 8 hours of the day. So I don't understand how is that even possible to have a $293 light bill.
My electricity bills, they are, I think, around $200 or $300. So it is the second highest bill that we have after our phone bill.
Southern Company has been extracting from and exploiting poor Black and brown communities here in Mississippi for decades. Their business model really is to poison the planet and charge the people for poisoning the planet. They're literally profiting off of the destruction of our planet and harming people.
It's affecting my community tremendously. Some parents is going without their lights being on, or their gas being on, their water being on. And it put a burden on our Black communities, because we want to have the necessities, the things that we need to survive. But when it comes to having to provide for our family, providing for food, or paying a bill, if we have a household, have 5 or more, you're going to buy the food for your household and try to find some assistance to help you pay your bills. But in this time and in the community, it's really hard, because everybody is not just one family going through this. It's several families being affected by the high cost of the electrical.
Listen as we'll hear how Southern Company shamelessly flaunts their power. Let us uncover the untold stories of economic hardships and communities that are suffering at the hands of their business model and predatory practices.
Climate crisis is real, and it's more than just bad weather. And the only way for us to get out of this situation is we have to move together. We have to agree with the planet, with genocides and apartheids and tornadoes and hurricanes, and what the communities look like after days of bombs and rain. You see, these are symptoms of climate change. And the only way to figure out what to do, we have to trace it back to its roots and find out why most of our planet's wealth is in the hands of a select few, and they don't look like me and you, they don't live like me and you, they don't respect me and you, and I think that connects me and you.
Our seniors are the most vulnerable. They're retired and they can't even retire in peace. People are making life-altering decisions. Should I run my air? Should I not?
Yes.
How can you retire in peace? I mean, this is really environmental injustice at its finest. It's nothing else that we can really say about it. You're putting people in a predicament between medication, running your air. Due to inflation, people can't even afford to live. Mental health, people rather live on the street.
It's time to expose Southern companies' exploitation of communities for profit, to stand up for the ratepayers' right to a fair and just power bill, to demand that the company change the way it does business. They have a mandate to not just be profitable, but most importantly, to be equitable.
The concept of arm in arm is simple. We aim to ignite a transformational era that ends the climate crisis by centering racial and economic justice. We lead with our values, for these are what drive our priorities and ground us in this fight. Every voice counts because we believe that the people can identify the solutions needed for their communities. We are the flooded, the drought-stricken, the broken-hearted, sifting through the ashes. We are the farmers watching our fields yield fewer crops, the poison whether we know it or not, the young and the old struggling to breathe. We are friends, family, co-workers, and neighbors. We are indigenous communities fighting to save our land. These are our struggles, our collective fight. We didn't know it then, but every decision we made and every action we took led us to this very moment. It's time for power for Southern people, not Southern company.
And when you're talking about companies and practices that only make it worse, we decided that focusing in on Southern company with the Power for Southern People, not Southern company campaign is the best way for us to illustrate who the bad actors are and how they do their bad actions and who they're impacting, and most importantly, to tell different stories than the ones the dirty energy companies are telling us. We want to tell the stories from the people who are having the experiences, who have the $500, $600, $700, $800 bills monthly that they can't pay. Those are the stories that we want to tell. A lot of our dirty energy monopoly utility companies have a lot of money, and they try and tell stories and tell people that they're good neighbors and they have good products and services and they take care of the community. It's lies. And we got a whole bunch of lies happening in Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, and so that's why we're here.
The purpose of the shareholders meeting was to speak directly to the issues, speak truth directly to power, and let them know they're not fooling anybody. And also, with their live stream, to let all the folks that were listening, all of their shareholders, all the people who invest in them to make money, that there are real consequences to them making money.
Through interactions with the community, we learned they couldn't afford their bills. They don't have adequate access to resources.
Whenever there's an increase in any utility, it makes you have to reassess the things that you do daily.
I will forego using my AC system just to make sure I can stay within a certain range for my energy bills.
At my apartment, I have a roommate and we have a dedicated, utility budget set aside, but if we go over it, and it's really easy to go over it, we get charged extra for the month. I spend so much funds on my utility bills that I could be spending on other things, like, certain types of textbooks that I have to share with a friend instead of getting one of my own because I couldn't afford it for the month because I had to set that money aside for my utility bill.
Debating if I want to buy gas for my vehicle or pay my electrical bill.
Penny pinching when it comes to maybe even buying groceries or medications.
Energy is what we use to really make our lives run smoothly. Like, kids use it for their education. We use it to do our work. We use it to cook at certain places. So when we think about these hikes, think about how you're impacting each person directly and how their quality of living can really decrease when you keep hiking up these bills, because a lot of things that they've become accustomed to or need to survive will be hindered if they can't pay for their electricity. Your utilities should be affordable. They should be stationary. They shouldn't fluctuate. In my opinion, utilities should be something that it fits as your basic human rights, like your basic human needs. So why make it hard for people to have?
Yeah, because like we know that Mississippi Power offers things like LEAP programs and things like that, but we don't qualify for that because we're in that medium income, right? We all, we try to work hard We have these jobs, we work 40, 60 hours a week, and then we still can't afford to not only be a part of the programs that are offered where we're getting assistance, but we can't afford to do it on our own.
We started as a grassroots experiment, bringing awareness of racial, economic, and environmental injustices. We were on the ground, organizing mutual aid, advocating for fair utility rates, and exposing the corporate greed behind one of the nation's largest utility monopolies, Southern Company. We are building a movement, one that rises from the grassroots, fueled by the stories of those affected most. We are shifting the narrative around Southern Company, exposing the truth, and taking our message directly to the streets. Through mutual aid, direct action, and relentless advocacy, we are ensuring that our demands are heard.
Arm in Arm's call to action reverberates across the globe, capturing the hearts and minds of individuals who refuse to stand idly by and allow Southern Company to continue to do business as usual.
We're going door to door because we know that we have the power in the people. It's as simple as just signing on that QR code, putting it on your social media, and just saying, follow the Yellow Brick Road. Because our last call, we had 1,000 people on there, and they shook it up. So this time, we're trying to bring like 10K. Because when they think that we're not going to show up, we can't.
Racial justice is environmental justice. If our lives matter, so does our healthcare, so does our lights, so does our water, all those things. So we have a demand with the National Action Network, which is a group of 200 organizations across the country who are fighting to center racial and economic justice within the climate crisis, basically putting Black people and Indigenous people first. We're out here to bring awareness.
Arm in Arm's dedicated team works to change the narrative around Southern Company by spreading awareness through a grassroots campaign to mobilize a powerful force for change using social media, canvassing, actions, and mutual aid to help pay people's utility bills. They ignite a fire within us, inspiring ordinary citizens to join the fight, uniting as a collective force against Southern Company's grip on our energy future. Now, my friends, here's the best part. Arm in Arm isn't just another passive observer in this tale of corporate villainy, environmental destruction, and climate denial. Oh, no, no, no.
You want me dead, America? Just say that. Just say that. It is up to us to show up for one another. It is up for us to pull up. They do not care about you. I love reminding us this. It is very important that we see the intersectionality. Every building, everybody listens to the sound of my voice are being held accountable. All of y'all. Show me what community looks like. This is what community looks like. This is what community looks like.
Because the solutions for our problems come from the people who are experiencing them.
People power. Not Georgia power. People power. Not Georgia power.
The revolution will not be brought to you by the Schaefer Award Theater and will not star Natalie Morales.
You can come outside and fight against climate justice and not fight against police brutality because they go hand in hand.
Arm in Arm has risen from the voices of impacted people with courage and conviction. By taking a firm, unyielding stand, Arm in Arm and the Power for Southern People, Not Southern Company campaign has become the voice calling for change, rallying people to take action against Southern companies.
Let me tell you how this shareholders meeting went. This was the most smug, arrogant display I've ever seen in my life. Now, you folks here in Georgia know that during the pandemic, Georgia Power cut off people's power. Tom Fanning
with a straight face told the entire audience, with a straight face,
no light,
no cap, told him, tell everybody with a straight face that Georgia Power didn't do that.
They don't have no light.
Where's Neil? Yeah, one time for Neil. One time Neil killed it. He was having this conversation with Neil. Neil was like, nah, brother, he didn't say brother, he said, nah, I disagree. And then he referred him to Google so that he could find his own lies, you know?
We are not just passive observers in this crisis. We are the change makers, the truth tellers, the protectors of our future. And we will not stop until justice is served. This is our call to action. We say enough is enough. Now is our time to rally up, stand together, and to demand power for Southern people. Join us, because together we are unstoppable.
I would ask them to just, get out into the communities, have more respect for the people who live in these communities, talk to them more, instead of just making decisions on places you've never been or places you have no recognition of, or there's never any community involvement. Right up the street, right around the corner, we have them building a whole new facility, right? We know nothing about it, right? We just know it's coming. We don't know how it's going to affect us in the future. We don't know how it's going to affect our kids in the future. All we know is that they took down half the trees, which is going to make it even worse for us in times of hurricanes, in times of storms, because there are no more windbreaks, right? To protect the communities that are right behind this property, right here behind the airport. There are long-standing historical communities that are now going to have more problems with storms and flooding because of all the trees and things that they just cut down, and habitats are being just disrupted. So I would ask them to give us more options. Why don't we have wind? Why don't we have solar, right? We don't know about them, and we don't get any information about them. So I think that, that would be some of the things that they could come and ask the communities how would we move forward.
So there you have it, my passionate peeps. Arm in Arm and the Power for Southern People, Not Southern Company campaign are fearlessly defying the odds, have taken a bold stance against Southern Company's climate denial and dismantling of our rights as citizens. Through their unwavering pursuit of justice and a better future, they unveil the real-life consequences of Southern Company's actions, raise awareness, and mobilize a formidable force for change.
What I'm really encouraged by is the fact that we keep doing it, we keep getting stronger, and they're going to have to listen to us. At this past Southern Company shareholders meeting, they tried not to even let us in the door. And, they can't do that.
We have a letter delivered to one Chris Womack at Southern Company. All right, thank you.
Stand by. We could be standing by for a long time.
Amount of people as we've had, why would you be so fearful that we can't get in the building? Can we not get in?
Why did you hit me for? Why did you hit me?
Why are you holding the door,
I
sir?
know, come. It's a public. Y'all.
Oh my God. I believe he just closed the door.
I can't believe he hit me first. That's what I can't. Yes, that's why I said, why are you hitting me? And then he realized, oh, I did just hit you. Exactly.
You should press charges.
I should.
Just want to make sure we can deliver this letter to Chris Womack from Southern Company.
We can't even get in the building. We are locked out of the building.
Southern Company, Georgia Power, we're putting you on notice.
Yes.
No more. The people are watching. The people say no more.
Together, we can rescue our planet and each other to ensure that no corporation wreaks havoc on our environment or our lives.
If the United States is #1 in carbon emissions, and Southern Company is number 1, 2, or 3, they're in the top 5 percentile for environment.
Remember, a single spark can start a roaring fire. Join Arm in Arm and the Power for Southern People, Not Southern Company campaign in this fight, and let's make a difference. Stay bold, stay courageous, and keep fighting for what you believe in.
We've got some great speakers, so let's move on to them. We have Reverend Michael Malcom, who is the Executive Director of Alabama Interfaith Power and Light and a licensed and ordained United Church of Christ minister. Reverend Malcom is the former senior pastor of Rush Memorial Congregational UCC in Atlanta, Georgia. He's the founder of the People's Justice Council, which is a 501c3 nonprofit focusing on environmental justice. Reverend Malcom served as the Environmental Justice Minister for the Southeast Conference of the United Church of Christ. He is a board member of the Southeast Climate and Energy Network. He considers himself an impassioned environmental justice advocate, fighting against environmental racism and injustice. He's heard, believes, and evangelizes the message of environmental justice. Reverend Malcom does this through education and advocacy from a faith-based perspective. He sees environmental justice as the moral obligation to love your neighbor and the solution to the climate crisis. Reverend Malcom says there can be no environmentalism without environmental justice. If you help the people, you'll heal the planet. We're also fortunate to have Lindsey Harper, who is currently the National Coordinator for Arm in Arm and Vice President of the Board of Directors for Southeast Climate and Energy Network. Previously, Lindsey was the National Coordinator of the U.S. Climate Action Network and was invited to join the United Nations Center of Regional Expertise, as well as the Environmental Justice Committee of the Coalition for the People's Agenda. Lindsey also supports the Partnership for Southern Equity's Just Energy Circle and Sister Song Women of Color Reproductive Justice Collective's Roundtable Series. She also represents Georgia Wand at the Pro-Georgia State Table and several working groups and has been elected to the Pro-Georgia Board of Directors. Lindsey believes that environmental empowerment through business education and community development is the strongest weapon to promote peace and combat the damage the systemic energy inequality and lack of effective policies cause all of us. So to get us started, we have a question for Reverend Malcom. What are the biggest challenges in taking on corporate energy monopolies like Southern Company, and what strategies have been most effective?
So thank you for that question. First, let me say thank you for the invitation to be here and being able to show the documentary. Shout out to every last one of the people that were involved in the documentary. The biggest challenges we find, in particular in the South, in dealing with Southern Company with this campaign, is what you all witnessed in the documentary itself. It's this disregard for us as ratepayers. It's this disregard for our households. And if you look at how we were locked out and the violence that actually ensued against us trying to get into the building, a building we pay for with our rates, you see that it's not just implicit. It's actually explicit. It's overt for us, and we can feel it not just in our pockets, but we feel the pains from what is done to us as well. I hope I answered that question.
Yep. Sounds like a great answer to me. Reverend, how can everyday people influence policy at the state and local levels to ensure more equitable and just energy systems?
Well, I mean, you, in a real sense, you have to do it just like we've been doing it. It has to be a grassroots effort. Unfortunately, and I know I'm speaking to my elders, and so I want to be very respectful when I say this, but we at this point cannot do armchair quarterbacking. You have to actively be involved, whether that be physically or mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And most of all, if I be real honest with you all, we've been doing this on a shoestring budget. And one of the biggest barriers we have is that Southern Company has a bunch of resources, and we're often drowned out by those resources, in particular with those who make decisions, those who actually set rules for our society that governs our lives, are often bought out by Southern Company, and as a result, when we go before them, we don't have. Not only do we not have enough resources to fight them in that moment, but even to continue the fight, we don't have enough resources. Let me not just talk about our problems. I know we often find ourselves feeling some kind of way, have this trauma fetish where somehow we tend to get more turned on by listening at people's pain and problems than we do the solutions. So let me not just talk about the problems in that answer, but also let me go to the solutions as well. The solution in that is again doing it from the grassroots. When community gets involved and it becomes about this community conversation, which this documentary is trying to do, to start these community conversations, then one, we see one another, we hear one another, but then we mitigate the system, if you will. When we collectively come together, we support one another, not just in time and talent, but also in our treasures. We mitigate the system because community is now involved. And anytime community is involved, the system is null. And so if you all would get involved and pour your resources, time, talent, and treasure into this, we can make a huge difference. We've seen differences being made so far, and we'll continue to see differences being made.
One thing we wondered about from the film itself was, were you able to deliver those 5,000 letters?
We have not, and so they locked us out. They locked us out. The first time they wouldn't accept them. The second time we went back, they locked us out. This time we're going back again, and we won't take a whole crowd with us. It'll be a delegation, but we're going back again. We're going in the building. They don't know who we are, this, that, and the other. And we want to demand not only that they take our petitions, but also that they have some conversation with us. And we don't want to talk to a representative, because last time they just gave us a representative that just got hired 2 weeks ago, or 2 weeks before. So we know you don't know us and you don't know anything about our problems. So we knew that was a bunch of a mess, if you will. So we don't want to hear from them. We want to talk to the president. We want to talk to some decision makers. We want to talk to somebody, some folks on the board. we want to have some real conversation and ask why in the hell are my bills so high?
Mm-hmm. Right. So, Lindsey, Arm in Arm focuses on addressing climate change through racial and economic justice. Can you speak on how these issues are interconnected and why they must be addressed together?
Yes, and thank you also for the opportunity to be with you here this evening and for viewing the documentary, which please know was definitely a labor of love by people who have been working together and traveling together and thinking and collaborating together and really put their heart and soul into the documentary. And we're very appreciative to be able to share it with you this evening. When it comes to Arm in Arm, Arm in Arm started really as a national effort, something that we broke out into various regions to kind of look at what was happening in the regions and to see if there were opportunities for like engagement or for boycott opportunities or opportunities to escalate is what we called it. And ultimately, after a couple of years of working on Arm in Arm, it was determined that the majority of the capacity, both of US Can and Arm in Arm, and also of the people who were involved in Arm in Arm, existed in the South. And that in addition to that, when thinking about what Arm in Arm was really looking to illustrate, which was the relationship between government and big business, and how that relates to climate, it exacerbates the climate crisis. And again, it felt like in the South with Southern Company, it was a perfect opportunity to really illustrate what big business and government really looks like. And so I think it's important to consider, why things look a certain way in certain parts of the country. And when you have companies that have such an economic and political stronghold, then there's a reason that you have particular industries and business practices and environmental impacts and economic impacts in certain parts of the country. And again, that points us back to Southern Company. And I want to say that, yes, Southern Company is a dirty energy monopoly company, but taking a step back and looking at how environmental justice is also, connected to reproductive justice, the right to have a child, the right not to have a child, the right to raise your child in a safe and healthy environment, and the right to bodily autonomy. And so thinking about the third element, the right to raise your child in a safe and healthy environment, well, that not only connects to the environment, but also connects to police brutality, having, access to economic opportunity, not having to worry about, dangerous roads, toxins, all the various things that many low wealth communities in this country have been dealing with for multiple generations. And there's a reason why these things show up. When thinking about Southern Company, that again is doing business in all 50 states, but we are focusing, of course, and leveraging the voices of people in Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia to really help tell the story about how these various issues are interconnected in ways that people are experiencing, but may not necessarily have the vocabulary or may not necessarily feel that they are the subject matter experts that they are. That's the thing. Oftentimes people may describe the situations. They may not use the words that we are using, but that doesn't mean that their experiences are not real and that they are not subject matter experts. And so for us, we're looking really to help support people in educating themselves so that they know when and where and who to apply pressure and where those intervention points can be. And so when you're thinking about dirty energy impacts people's pockets. As you saw in the documentary, people have to make hard choices. So economics includes food, health, education, right? All of these things are interconnected in ways that people don't necessarily put together, and especially in the context of the climate crisis. People always talk about solar panels and polar bears, but people are not talking about that economic piece, the people piece, the fact that we don't seem to have enough say-so or access to enough money to actually create the infrastructure changes or whatever those things are that people feel are necessary in the community so that they can address not only the climate crisis, but the energy crisis that comes along with it. For instance, nuclear power plant Vogtle in Georgia, as we talk about, both contributes to and is exacerbated by the climate crisis. And so, when you've got systems that are, feeding more negative systems and exacerbating things that have already been bad for so long, they have to become interconnected after a while. We can't even get solar in Georgia because Southern companies got their hands all up in that too. They've increased the solar. Okay, but I just learned there is an integrated resource process happening here in Georgia, and in the past 6 years, the energy projections, they are now saying because of data centers will be doubling. In 6 years, they are doubling their energy projections because of data centers. So again, going back to interconnected issues, technology, AI, job opportunities, workforce development, water use, because data centers take up so much water and land. Water and land should be going to people so they can live and eat. These are the kinds of conversations that we're looking to have and help people make the connections so that we can begin to have conversations with the decision makers that are really making our problems worse than they need to be.
So what are some of the successful strategies you've seen for organizing communities to push back against these energy monopolies? And how can people who are moved by the film take action, just going beyond signing petitions and donating? What deeper involvement would you recommend?
So those are many questions, and so I will try and take them one by one.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'll take them one by one. So I'll definitely say that what we learned up into kind of this point is that it has worked for us to really lean into many of our like grassroots organizations relationships, who have the relationships with folks in the community that we're looking to like work with and communicate with. So that's been one strategy that has definitely benefited us. And right now we're working with organizations across Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia in a state leadership structure that are kind of helping us to make those decisions as to how to implement the campaign in the various states. So that has been working for us across our various states, leaning into the expertise, the institutional knowledge of the people that live in those places. We've also definitely found that, it's easier to have a conversation with someone about these topics when they don't necessarily have to worry about their bills. Rev mentioned earlier, I believe, mutual aid is also in the documentary. Mutual aid is a huge piece of this because people, it's similar to, it's difficult for people to pay attention if they have a hungry belly. If you have constantly on your mind, you cannot get out from under your bill. It's something that you're never able to pay all of it off. You're never able to pay all of it off. And there's so many people who experience that. And again, you saw we're making these kinds of decisions. And so again, as much as we can and as much as we like to, is to incorporate mutual aid, into our work. And so there's that. I would also say that our grand strategic objective has really been, of course, leveraging the voices of people in Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia to change the narrative that Southern Company is a good neighbor. Again, this is something that people, I think, may know, but may not necessarily be putting the dots together in a way to understand that there are alternatives to the way people are living their lives in relationship to their energy usage. And what's interesting, and Rev mentioned that we did get a chance to talk to a Southern Company representative. And one of the things I remember in that conversation, there was so much emphasis put on, people should change their habits, and people, all of the accountability was put on the energy user, on the consumer, on us. And I was like, well, okay, energy usage, that is a thing. However, when you're making particular business choices, infrastructure choices, that has very little to do with consumption, and that's about production, and production is how you make money. So let's have that conversation, right? So I think that, again, changing the conversation so that people don't feel additional burdens on the fact that, not only do I have to pay for it, now I got to change my habits too. No, let's change the conversation and shift our energy and attention to those who are actually making these decisions, again, that are working against us. What we're looking for people to do once they have seen the documentary, we're wanting folks to email the public service commissioners. We're wanting people to email particular folks working over at Southern Company. We're pulling this information together right now. And so we'll have this for folks who are interested in participating in the Southern Company shareholders meeting, which is May 21st. We're also asking people to buy shares in Southern Company, become a shareholder. That makes sense, right? Then you really have a way to be in the room and to begin to inform yourself and understand the conversations that are being had, and find out if there are ways that you can take that information to support like local community. We have also talked about sharing the documentary. Please share the documentary. If you want to make it fun and you want to have a party or you want to have a get together, whether it be inside, outside, it could be with tea, it could be with a little harder drink if you like. You can put up a movie screen. It could be virtual, just like we're doing right now. Share the documentary, do a viewing party. We have to share the word. We have to share this out. It's the only way we're going to win. And again, doing it across Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia is already working to our favor. So it's just more of the same as how we want to build that energy and build that voice and push back because they're lying. They're lying. So
absolutely. Francis, if you don't mind, real quick, I'm looking at the chat, and so I'm seeing a lot of the questions. Let me explain, because I don't know if we've done a good job of doing so, the way that Southern Company operates and our Public Service Commission operates. The way that it's supposed to operate is our Public Service Commissioners are elected. They're elected officials by the people, and they are supposed to serve us and ensure that the rates and regulations are in place to protect us. However, the way that it actually works is Southern Company contributes a whole lot of money to our public service commissioners, and so they basically own them. And so instead of looking out for the interest of the people, they look out for the interest of these polluters. And so, in essence, some of the questions that were asked is speaking of petitioning the legislators. We have tried to have meetings with legislators and to no avail, because the moment we say that we want to have this meeting about Southern Company, whether it be Alabama Power, Georgia Power, Mississippi Power, everything gets shut down. In addition, with our public service commissioners, not all seats are filled with our public service commission, so we do have an opportunity to push for filling some of these seats. We are also planning this over the summer, fall, to start meeting with our public service commission and taking delegations to meet with our public service commissioners so that we can fight against them. Now, for Alabama, the chair of the Public Service Commission is Twinkie Kavanaugh, I believe is her name. I actually went to her church to talk to her pastor because I'm trying to figure out what you're teaching in your church. He was just retiring, so he didn't give me the time of day. But I'm really trying to approach it from several different angles to see if we can't be effective to at least get in their face. We hadn't even been able to get in our public service, our public elected public service commission. I'm gonna say that again because I know we've got elders. Our elected public service commissioners won't take a meeting with us. Our elected public service commissioners won't take a meeting with us.
I think this year Georgia is supposed to be electing 2 public service commissioners. Do you think there's any possibility if we work together, we can get people, at least one elected who will actually care about the people and holding these companies to account?
We can definitely try. The most they can do is tell us no.
Yeah, I just would like to add, there have been, I know personally, several colleagues who have run over the past few years. Rev, I know you do as well. And so there are definitely, in Georgia, there are definitely efforts to shift the power dynamic of the Georgia Public Service Commission because of the way the districts are set up, and just the whole thing. And I do also want to say that there are 2 seats up And because there has been such a delay in the Public Service Commission election, those 2 seats, actually, those people have been in, they are not, essentially unelected. And you would think then their decisions then should not hold because they're literally unelected. They've been in that seat a year beyond, at least I think a year beyond when their term was up. So in thinking about the legitimacy of these elected bodies making decisions that have multi-generational environmental and economic impact on people, is we have to talk about that. We have to talk about that.
And one of the biggest reasons why they get to do this and run roughshod the way that they do is because nobody really understands the Public Service Commission. The public, that is, I call it the worst kept secret that we have in our local government is our Public Service Commission. Nobody really understands who they are, and nobody knows that they actually elect these people. You took a box, but they don't really understand that we actually elect these people to protect us.
Yeah, well, there's a note in the chat that Third Act Georgia is going to be working on the PSC election for people who want to do that. Also, Elders Climate Action does a lot of work with the Environmental Voter Project, and we'll be working on getting out the vote for people who care about the environment, who I think are probably the same people you're looking for that Georgia PSC election. So those are other opportunities people have to help you move this forward.
Another one is the People's Power Union, but I don't have their link. Let me see if I can get that link to you all. I maybe have to get it to you later, but it's Georgia Conservation Voters that are running that particular, and Arm in Arm is a part of that.
Shout out! I happen to be wearing that shirt.
Ah,
want to show. Yes, People's Power Union, Georgia.
We will get all that information out to people. Hopefully tomorrow, but Rev, if it takes a little longer, we will still get it out to people.
Ariana just dropped it.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Ariana. Let's see what else we've got. There was a question if any of the states served by Southern Company are working on getting a green constitutional amendment that protects the right to a healthy environment and stable climate.
I've not heard of that. I don't know if Lindsey has any groups that may be working on something along those lines, but I've not even heard of something like that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, we had an effort like that in Maryland, which unfortunately didn't get far enough.
I would probably echo the same and just say that, you know, the South is a region that has a culture and a particular legacy of relationship between, you know, race, you know, the constituencies, elected, like, you know, bodies. So it's just
the South has been racist and oppressive is what she just said. I'm just interpreting it for her.
Thank you, Red. And so those kinds of things, I mean, quite honestly, when you've got conservative majority and have had conservative majority for so long, that stuff doesn't really fly down here, you know? And so we're working uphill under decades of advancement of other kinds of policies before we can even get to anything about equity. We are not talking about equity.
Yeah.
And there's one other thing that occurred to me that I want to make sure we looped into the intersecting issues is also around labor. Our states are all right to work states. That's on purpose. You know what I'm saying? That's also connected to the legacy of slavery. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, let's never forget where we are, which is very much adding to why we are in the situations that we're in.
Although anybody who wants to work on a constitutional amendment, if they ever get to that point, talk to the folks in Montana, which is a very different state, but also a very conservative state. And it turns out to have made a huge difference in Montana.
I got to stop you for a minute, Ms. Francis, because I don't know if you just heard what Lindsey said. Look at the demographics of Montana and look at the demographics of us in these southern states.
They're very different, I know.
Yeah. So
I've lived in Mississippi.
We get treated a whole lot different when we show up in spaces. And then let me also remind you that Lindsey just told y'all we got 2 public service commissioners that's been sitting in a seat, 2 citizens that's been sitting in the public service commission seat that are occupying and making decisions in this seat that aren't legally supposed to be there. They aren't elected. They just occupying it. They 2 citizens occupying public service commission seats. That should be national scandal.
Right.
But guess what? In Alabama, the oldest black newspaper, Alabama Power, now owns. Biggest contributor for Cox is Georgia Power. One of the biggest contributors. So when you own the media and you do bad stuff, who gonna report you? Like the young lady used to say, who gonna check me, boo?
Yep. So lots of questions relating, I guess, to, I'm trying to kind of group them to some degree and ungroup them if this doesn't make sense. Because I know you're looking at the chat. But a lot of people interested in kind of grassroots approaches to renewable energy. And are you seeing any of that? Do you think any of that could work where you're working?
Ask that again. I'm sorry. I was looking at something else.
Yeah, people are kind of suggesting various ways that people in other areas have worked on kind of from the grassroots trying to build renewable energy, wind and solar. And do you see potential for that? And if you do, how could that be done?
I'll look, well, Southern Power, Southern Company, excuse me, they have some solar, they have wind, they are producing or generating those. And Alabama Power lobbied to have Alabama pass a special tax if you have solar on your home for generating power. They basically, you pay a different rate where it almost equates out to be about the same as if though you didn't have solar. So what I'm trying to show you is these contrasts. You got them owning some, but they're trying to keep it out of the hands of the everyday citizen.
Yeah.
So this is the type of thing that we've got going on. Again, it's profit over people and planet.
Now, some states, their legal structures make it easier to do community solar. Do any of the states you work in have that? Or
Georgia has something like it, but I think Mississippi is actually one of the better producers of solar, I believe, or more friendly with solar, I believe. I'd have to look that up for sure, but I think Mississippi is more friendly. Georgia is somewhat friendly, and Alabama Power, Alabama, I just told you about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would just add to that. That kind of question is when I would lean into the knowledge of the people that live in those states, right? So like that, those are the kinds of questions we lean into the state lead meetings, so that folks can like inform that for where they live. So, but I think that it's really about scale. And like, yeah, I like in Georgia, like I know there are some people that do have solar, you know, but this is about competition. I mean, it's business, right? They're not gonna, if we're talking about revolutionizing and changing the energy distribution system in this country, a Southern Company is not gonna sit here and help us do that, right? So I think there's some access to capital, there's some education, there's access to capital, and there's some jobs, there's some infrastructure, there's some things that would need to happen in a really like kind of, you know, systemic at scale way to get at, so people would get off the grid, get off the grid. And that's the real solution, right? And electrifying the things.
You know, a lot of what you're talking about, you know, the huge political influence the Southern Company has. Are they doing that like directly through political, you know, contributing to candidates' political campaigns, or is it more kind of under the radar, or both?
No, we've got corporate research that shows the donations that they've made, and so in the documentary, you saw mention that the 700 grand that went towards federal legislators that wanted to overturn the 2020 election, but there are also the local ones as well. We just didn't put that in the documentary, but yeah. And to be fair, Southern Company gives money to everyone who's elected, to a lot of campaigns. And so there again, there's another layer. There's another added layer of nuance. Thinking about climate champions, thinking about people who are being maybe more advantageous and positioning themselves to get funds, and really thinking about who's really trying to move and fundamentally change the circumstances of the communities in which they live. Those are not the conversations that Southern Company is really looking to fund, right? They want to fund to look good, to show, we want people to be educated and to come work for Southern Company because we have jobs, and, look at all these people in the community who are able to support themselves. And, we're such, again, good neighbor, good neighbor, good neighbor, good neighbor. Nah.
And so I was asking, in terms of the electric power generation, how much of that is coming from coal, and where does the coal come from?
Yeah, I think it was. Hold on, I'm trying to look it up. I just had put it in the question and answer for somebody or something like that, I think. But I want to say it's over 60% is produced by coal, and then something like 40% is produced by alternative energy sources.
And I just would like to add to that also, never want to take nuclear energy off the table.
Right.
And what I find really interesting, I mentioned to you all earlier that the energy projections for use, as they are now saying, we need to double. But they just finished towers 3 and 4 over at Plant Vogtle, which is supposed to be like the panacea and to be able to produce all the energy. So even if you did double your projections, I would think that the nuclear would be enough, right? But they're talking about they need to add more wattage now. Now they need more wattage, more wattage. It's like, okay, guys, it's like they're drunk with it. Just, good God. So anyway.
Are they saying more coal, more gas, more nuclear?
More wattage, and that just need to generate more wattage. And I don't know how they plan to generate that wattage. They're just saying so I know that one of the things, and I don't have all of the details to answer your question very specifically. Again, this is when I would lean into, we've got people who have got a lot of technical expertise, but a lot of coal permitting has been allowed recently with some of the changes, in the new administration. And so a lot of those plants that were right on the edge of being shut down, they're kind of thinking about bringing them back again. It's like the zombie thing, things won't go away.
Yeah, they're the dirtiest ones. And then.
And let me just give a plug for small modular reactors. Small modular reactors, SMRs, you hear about them. So these smaller nuclear, it's better, they're not as expensive. SMRs, small modular reactors, use more water per wattage than the big old towers 3 and 4 for the AP1000s that they have in Georgia and any other nuclear. So it's a lie. There is no such thing as clean nuclear. They're lying.
Yep. We could probably go on all night, and there's lots of questions and lots of things that we'd love to know from you. But we ought to make sure we have time for our action. So we're going to be dropping a link for an action item in the chat. Our action item calls on states to support environmental justice. And don't forget, support People's Justice Council by donating to them using the link in the chat. And thank you so much to our speakers, Reverend Michael Malcom and Lindsey Harper. We appreciate both of you taking the time to share this important film and your knowledge with us. All of the activists highlighted in this film and the time you've been able to spend with you have helped us better understand the scope of the issue and how we can get involved, how we can support the communities you're working with, and how we can act in our own communities. So please watch for the recording tomorrow, and please host a watch party of Exposing the Unspoken. Thank you.